What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the video. Today we're going to be installing a few new fans in the case and also wrapping up the PC build for 2014. Now, if you guys haven't seen the rest of the build, I recommend you check out the link in the description. That's going to be the playlist for each part, unboxing, and an overview is going to be done in this video as well. So if you guys are wondering what the PC build looks like, well, here you go. You can see my final setup, triple monitors, Razer gear, and of course the beast machine itself. The only thing cosmetically that will be changing with this fan install is it's going to be a little bit brighter, but that wasn't really the reason for me installing these three new fans. It was actually caused by one, I wanted to get a fan blowing directly onto my GTX 680 because I had the option to do so, and I also wanted to fix a fan rattle problem, which I'll show you guys in a minute here, which was obnoxious and totally annoying, and it was just kind of in a line with Corsair's problems with rattling fans. Seems to be an issue with the H110 that a lot of people are having, but yeah, I didn't want to deal with an RMA and deal with Corsair sending me a new fan and taking weeks and weeks and weeks. So I just went on Amazon and ordered some LED fans that I know are pretty decent, and it really didn't improve or hinder performance at all. It just kind of fixed a annoying rattle, which you guys can hear now. So as you can tell, that is pretty annoying to deal with whenever you're using your computer, turning on your computer, anything like that. I was always having this rattle sound from a fan, so eventually after about a week of dealing with it, I went ahead, turned on the computer, stopped each fan, and found out that it was the back fan on my H110. So what I ended up doing was just saying, hey, I'll go ahead and replace both fans on the H110. I don't want to deal with an RMA, and I went with the NZXT LED series fans, and they work pretty well. They're silent, they run the computer equally as cool, and it worked pretty well. So what we're going to do now is go ahead and show you guys the idle temps, which you can see here, and they're really good actually within this case. 71 for a CPU on idle and 83 for graphics, and everything else being lower than that, I'd consider that a pretty damn good performance out of the computer. Now here is it under a stress test from Prime 95. This is a CPU specific stress test, and I think it's memory as well, but mainly stressing that CPU. And you can see once I flip back to it, and as you just saw, it's a pretty cold performance right now. It's at 100% usage, and it's only around 103 degrees Fahrenheit, which is not bad at all, especially under an extreme load. Now here you can see another test. This is a graphic specific test, and this is kind of the reason why I wanted to direct a fan directly onto my GPU. And this is the hottest part of my computer by far because it's not liquid cooled, and you guys got to see it's at 81 degrees Celsius, which is like 180 or so Fahrenheit. I'm doing it off the top of my head, but it's a very, very hot Fahrenheit, and it's the hottest part of my computer. You can also see the scores that I got, FPS averages, things like that, but overall the temperature was what I was looking at, and it was at 81 degrees Celsius. So the goal is to see if that one directed fan actually ends up bringing some change, which you guys will get to see at the end. We'll do another stress test, but you can see as far as the score goes, I was scoring above a GTX 780. I don't know why, but I was, which was kind of cool to see. I'm not really sure why my score came out so high. FPS was not at 68 frames per second. It was at like 40 something, but at the end of the day, for some reason, I was above the 780. So I'm only running the 680, and it was pretty good. So anyway, guys, here are the two fans we'll be installing. I guess the three fans. It's going to be two of these NZXT 140 millimeter fans. These are going to be on the top where I was talking about that fan rattle issue. You guys can see the box though, just some basic stuff, information that it comes with. These fans are not by any means super high performance fans, but they do the job, and being that I have so much push-pull setup going on anyway with now 4 fans up at the top there on the radiator, it worked out pretty well regardless. And also you can see here the SP120 is a 120 millimeter fan. It came with 2 of them. I'm only going to be using one, and now I guess I have a backup fan if I need it, but this fan is a little bit smaller and it fits a little better to be directed directly onto the graphics card. So yeah, those are the fans I'll be installing. This fan is actually what I should have probably gone with, a Corsair fan maybe. I don't know. I only went with Corsair because it was a good airflow fan, and I was a little frustrated with Corsair's fan rattle issue, so I wasn't really happy with that whole thing. But anyway, you can see here are the 2 fans I'm going to be taking out on the top of the radiator, or I guess the bottom of the radiator, and here is the location for the other fan, the 120 millimeter fan that I'm going to be directing at the GTX 680. That fan is actually really cool because you can adjust it to focus more on the CPU if you'd like to, although it's pointless for me because it's liquid cooled. But if you have a fan cooled system, you can actually direct more air towards your CPU, which is pretty freaking cool. So you can see here I'm going to go ahead and mount it in here. I ran into some problems, so I ended up actually cutting this because I had to run up and down stairs, but you can see here it is. I actually, if you noticed, used a little bit of zip instead of a screw because I had some screw issues. But at the end of the day, I guess they both serve the same purpose. It's a little ghetto rigged, but it worked out pretty well here. And I also switched that little ring around it to be red because, as you guys have seen, the case is very red focused on the inside. Now, moving on to the next fan install, you can see just taking out the screws here. I first was just attacking these screws and realized that the bottom screws I actually couldn't get to because the motherboard was in their way. There's actually really a raised heatsink on the top there that I couldn't get to the bottom screws because of. So what I had to do was disassemble the case, unscrew the top fans, because the only way to get to the radiator would be to unscrew those top fans. So I actually had to unscrew one of the top fans, remove it completely, and then eventually I was able to get to the radiator, and I had to take the radiator entirely out to actually get access to these fans, which you guys can go ahead and see right here. It was a huge hassle, which I was hoping to be a really easy install, but you never know with computer stuff. Sometimes things get way overcomplicated very quickly. So I didn't want to have to take the radiator completely out and have to take it off the CPU itself. So what I ended up doing was just holding it, unscrewing it quickly here, and then popping on these new fans. And I also moved the computer because I tested the fans to make sure they worked, because I didn't want to have to put all this in, turn it on, and realize the fan wasn't working correctly. So I went ahead and did that off camera. Did both fans work? So I went ahead and unscrewed that left fan, unscrewed the right fan, and as you can see here, just cutting out a little bit of parts because I don't want you guys to sit through 2 hours of me screwing in screws. But I ended up putting on both fans that were these LED fans, and then just tightening them up. And then as you can see here, tightening that last screw, both fans are on there. So now what I need to do is actually go ahead and just pop this back up here and then screw back in all those screws up top. Now, as you'll notice, that fan on top is actually not screwed in. It's just resting there. I didn't mess that up, but I actually kind of ended up getting in the way of myself screwing it back in. So that was kind of cut. But anyway, turning on the computer, you can see everything reassembled, the fans and how they're working. You can see the actual top fan is fixed. And as you hear, there is no rattle anymore, which is super nice to have that finally gone. So you can see here both fans, they look nice aesthetically, and once again, they didn't boost performance and they didn't hinder performance. So ultimately it was just kind of an annoyance fix, and ultimately it just didn't change anything for that CPU. Although I will say, as you guys will see, the GPU does run a little bit colder, and here's just an idle test. Temperatures are very, very similar as they were before. I think the CPU is running slightly hotter, a degree or two, but that may just be variation, and then the graphics card running about the same idle, which is pretty much expected. But under load, you guys will get to see, here's the CPU. It's sitting at 101. It kisses 102 right here as well, so it's not too hot. Like I said, pretty much the same performance. As you guys will see, I think yeah, there it is, kisses 102 and comes right back down. I think I got it up to about 102, maybe 103 even in some other tests. So ultimately about the same, maybe a little bit less performance, but we're talking maybe a degree, if that. And as you can see, here's the stress test on the GPU, and you can see the temperatures quickly rising, which is expected. And then you can see it kind of floats around 78 degrees Celsius for quite a while, and eventually got up to 80 degrees Celsius, but never above that. So it did actually improve performance to have that fan on it. FPS rates actually increased as well in gaming by 1 or 2 frames, nothing major, but ultimately the temperature did go down. As you can see, 78, 79, and eventually it did break 80, which you can see here, but never above 80. So that was really nice to see, and it took a lot longer to get to 80, which is kind of cool as well. So that's pretty much it as far as the install goes. I'll give you guys one more overview of the computer itself and the build, so you guys can get an idea of what it all ended up looking like. And here's another close-up view. You can see just how bright this red is inside this case. We have 4 LED fans now, a bunch of LED strips inside the case, outside the case as well. So ultimately, I think it turned out pretty good. So guys, thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please leave a thumbs up and a favorite. And once again, if you guys haven't seen the other parts and you're interested, I recommend you check them out. Links in the description and the playlist. Thanks again for watching, guys. I'll leave you guys with this, and you can go ahead and see the rest of the build. Until next time, peace, and I'll catch you in the next one.